Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, LinkedIn. We are back for Lead Score Monday. The last time we did I did a Lead Score Monday, at least. Anybody did a Lead Score Monday, unless someone's been doing them. Um, was in August, before inbound, before the sunset of the scoring properties. But we're coming back because lead scoring updates are not over. There continues to be changes both in the tool, but also in the needs for lead scoring. And today I am here with Chris Carolyn and Riley Powell, who have both been along for the Value First lead scoring journey with me. And we're going to talk a little bit about where to go from here, how to continue to improve lead scoring and make it more trustworthy, more reliable, just better. If you're here, drop a comment. I just got off another live that wasn't working on desktop, so let us know if you're here live or not. Or you just watch the recording later, maybe.
Or just listen.
Or just listen.
Let us know.
Lots of options.
Lots of options. How are you guys doing?
Good to be back.
Yeah, doing very good.
So today's conversation is rooted a bit in the value path, Chris, that the framework you developed. That's fair to say, right? That's accurate? Yeah. Okay. You take ownership of that. Just making sure. I didn't want to
Yeah. We'll talk about co-creating it with Claude.
Yeah.
Your co-author.
Yeah.
For anyone that doesn't know what the value path is, can you give a little bit of an intro on that?
Yes. And I'm going to be super visual.
I hoped you would be.
But first, imagine a world where we could use stage names and category labels and words that represented human beings and not objects in a CRM or fields in a CRM. That is at the heart of what we're trying to accomplish here, because I feel like I've cracked the code as we continue to do more project work. Other things that have happened since we last met, we finished a couple of, lead scoring projects to help people, migrate to the new scoring tools in HubSpot. Thank you, Riley. And we've had a data summit, which has done a number on me in terms of understanding how to create a foundation for value first in general and all things, especially data, because we ended up designing the summit around these stages, right? So as I get into them here, I'm going to go through them really quick, and then we'll get into, we'll go back stage by stage as much as we can. So just share my screen. And this was, these, as an example, these stages existed before Value Path was even a thing. Like, this is my reaction to, I hate the word lead. Every time I'm in a conversation with somebody about leads, it inevitably is just uncomfortable. Like, strategies don't make sense. We're focused on the wrong thing. So like, how can I change the names of stages to set up the HubSpot data model effectively, to like talk to people about this, to humanize the process on the other side? Because if you're thinking customer first, like, everything comes from what they're doing. And they would never refer to themselves as a lead, as an MQL, as an SQL, as an opportunity. They might refer to themselves as a buyer or a customer, but that's about as far as our internal language goes, right? So that's where this is coming from. First, we have audience. They're saying, I am learning. Researcher, I am researching. See, very simple here, like, not super complex. Hand raiser, I am buying, or I am in buying mode. Somebody highlighted a couple days ago, like they might not be the buyer, right? But they're highly interested. They've gone into that buying mode and they're actually reaching out to talk to somebody. This is the one, I can't get away from the word opportunity. So how could we do it for a human being, highly empowered revenue opportunity? They're the hero of their own story, hero of their own business.
Mhm.
Build conviction, right? They've got to probably sell this internally, and we've got to help them do that, or just help
Mhm.
by value creator. No matter who this is, uh, at this handoff stage of the process, whether they've met us before or not, they've got to create value for the org. Um, Adopter, we want people to adopt. In order to do that, they need to realize the value that's been created. Advocates, I tell others about you, and as I describe this stage, I kind of bias towards the internal advocacy, right? When we have other teams and other team members telling each other how great the product is or the thing is
Mhm.
that we've bought into, that enables adoption at higher levels.
Mhm.
And we often want to skip to, champion where, oh, give me your testimonial. Like, let's do that. We need to market more. We need to get more leads, right? So instead of, that's why I differentiate these two. So before we dig into each one, uh, like what comes to mind, Riley, as you think about the projects you just did, or um, challenges that
Yeah.
we might have?
So obvious observation for me, and these are not criticisms, just observations based off of where we are and what we're proposed, where we're going. Half of this is post sale, in theory, where in the original life cycle stage model, a tenth of it, or what, there's one stage post sale. Basically, it's customer and then maybe evangelist, and in
No one used
in
Evangelist.
100 portals, I've never seen someone using Evangelist,
Yeah.
ever. The only time I've actually ever seen it is when they label their own company as Evangelist. Like
Mhm.
that's the default use case. So I've always tried to turn that on and get that to be a thing, but it's not really been successful. And I like that we're highlighting that more. Just general business sense tells you like it's more difficult to the most expensive customer is that first time buyer customer, and you can get more and more value from your existing customers over and over again so long as you continue to serve them and keep them happy. And I'm going to try and toggle both back and forth between thinking of this primarily from the perspective of the organization versus also heavily considering the perspective of the buying journey, the person on the other end of this. It's also not immediately clear where like the transaction is in this model, which is, I don't know if it intentional or not intentional, but just an observation of, in the old model, you see opportunity, customer, and most people's brain immediately makes the connection like, okay, money changed hands, contract signed, etc. But I do like how this is so much framed around the buying journey perspective.
Mhm.
I think that will cause some difficulty in people internally at an organization trying to like align what they think they need to do to these journeys and stages. Like just from a transitory period, I think not sure where I'm at on if it's like what the new world will look like once they get it, if you know what I mean.
Yes. And this got moved at some point, so I'm just going to move it right now. But you make a good point in terms of like one of the most challenging things internally, and I think as a consultant, is when you hear people talk about goals like renewal,
Mhm.
upsell, cross sell, um, expansion, and then every map ends at closed one,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? And so, like, when you can take a step back and just you can start to serve these things in a way that, like, let's take the new lead object, for example. right? That lead object, if we're basing it on signals, right, and actual behavior, could be created at any one of these 8 stages,
Yeah, absolutely. And it should.
right?
The
Right.
amount of contentious conversations I have where I'm like, hey, do we want to make a lead for customers? And people just look at me blankly, like, why would we do that? I'm like, why wouldn't you? Like, how are you keeping track of what your customers are not doing as they interact with your brand? Like, what are your signals? Are they in a different pipeline? Like, and then that inevitably leads to this just big conversation where, for the most part, people end up either putting them off in a corner, or they like make leads for them, but then do not create a fraction of the process or support that they create for customer leads that they do for net new leads that have 20 workflows of support and 100 different assets and 10 human beings dedicating full-time effort to it, whereas the customer leads typically have like 2 workflows, 2 assets, 1 human being. Like, just from a pure volume, people do not look at the customers.
Right. And that is ultimately why I changed this stage name.
Okay.
Right? Because first of all, a lot of people have different definitions of the word customer. And my first disconnect was, we're trying to, like, everybody knows that customer experience can be a differentiator, like the differentiator, right?
Yeah.
And we don't call people customers until they give us money. So what happens to the experience before that? Right? We don't design for it. We design, like, for marketing and sales, we design for it. We don't design for it for the external, customer, because they're not a customer yet. Right? When in reality, you could say, whenever there's an exchange of value, the first exchange of value, like, that's when they're a customer, and I'm going to design the whole experience to support that. Right?
Yeah.
That was reason number 1 why I even started. Like, it was customer for a long time, right? Like, on these diagrams in this Canva, it was the last thing that got changed. And it wasn't until a conversation with Claude, it's like, okay, here's my problem with the name of this stage. And I started talking through it. And honestly, it gave me 10 like new labels, and value creator was like the clunkiest one. I was like, all right away. I was like, that's not going to work. That doesn't hit. Right. But the other thing is that we often take for granted, just because somebody is labeled a customer in our CRM, that they trust us, that they know everything that's happened up to now. And one of the biggest problems we've always had is handoffs from sales to service, especially in situations where the person representing the company that sold the product has not been involved in the process. They're here to implement things. And the person that's involved in receiving what's being delivered has not been involved in the process. Everybody's meeting each other for the first time. There's zero trust. There's zero relationship.
Yeah.
And we just assume that everybody knows what's going on because, they already gave us money. They're a customer.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna treat it as if we still need to build trust. Right.
Yeah.
And once you start to dig into it, individual contributors have a form of value that they're trying to create. Managers need to create a form of value, and executives. And those are all different. Right. So it starts to create the space to think about these things in complex ways. Right. While not trying to overcomplicate for no reason. Right. But when we build it into HubSpot in this way, HubSpot is the tool that can help us get personal at scale. Right. We start to differentiate executive from manager from, individual contributors. Now we can use the right language when speaking to them. Like, if you talk to like a sales rep when you're implementing and you're trying to get them on board, and you can't stop talking about the dashboards and the reports that management wants to see like Big Brother mode starts going off, and like all these warnings start to go off, and the sales are like, how is this helping me? Is this just for my bosses so that they can keep track of me?
Mhm.
Right? And you're like, well, yeah, but right, that's not what they want to hear at all. Right? And a lot of admin types, like
Mhm.
that's what they go in with. Right? Well, you need to do this for me so that management and executives can see. That doesn't mean anything to a rep. Like that's not what they're there for. And vice versa. You don't want to talk to executives about meeting links and like 15 minutes saved here and there, right?
Yeah.
So how could you possibly know, like, if we're trying to help teams effectively serve this journey without identifying that, like, and especially now with AI close by, like it would be very hard to differentiate the message, and you start to tie that back to sales and service, sales to service handoff. It's one of the
Yeah.
most common places for friction and failure in these systems, and it's not hard to see why.
Yeah.
I also keep looking at this in terms of like premium models. I'm a big fan of Fathom. I bring it to all my meetings. I might even consider myself a champion of Fathom, and I've never paid for Fathom. Like, does Fathom consider me a customer? Like, I don't know how. Probably not. I don't know what I'm labeled in their CRM, but um so that's kind of interesting looking at this too as
So
like
I that's a really good observation. And when I first saw this, my head went to like, this is a framework for ideas, not necessarily for like products or services or anything, which ideas can become products and services. But to me, this is like a framework for how an idea, where you're at in assessing an idea. Are you at like the audience, researcher, hand raiser, like, which is useful to me, and I think could be very well overlaid with business in terms of products and services. But anytime I have any different idea or someone else's idea, like I'm kind of in one of these stages. Like I'm in the audience of it, just letting it hit me, not necessarily like integrating it or anything. But then I might move into researching it a little bit, or then like having some questions about it of like, hey, how does this idea kind of land or adjust? And so, Casey, you're probably like from that Fathom perspective, just because you're not giving them money, like you're in the champion of the idea of Fathom, of a
Mhm.
AI note taker that is always where you need it to be and gives you everything that you needed, like on the
Mhm.
output. So I would definitely call you a champion. This to me is where like
Right.
in HubSpot, and it's always been the problem with lifecycle stage in general, where the difference of status and stage, what's, there is a significant difference in those. And then what question are you asking and what data point are you trying to get? Like if you're trying to assess whether or not someone is a customer, this might not be the best framework for like giving that yes or no answer. But you can definitely make it to where, you have to be able to indicate once they reach a certain stage here, like, have they given us revenue? Yes or no? Like,
Mhm.
where it's just, okay, let's answer that specific question, but it doesn't have to live in the answer to this question, which is where are they at on their buying journey with us?
And maybe it's worth like taking this all a step back, which is because we're talking about like redoing life cycle stages, right, Chris? Like that's
Mhm.
just
Yeah,
in
which
case
is
anyone's like
lead
unclear.
scoring inevitably always bumps up against.
Um, and what is the purpose of a life cycle stage? I believe the purpose is to group people, right?
Mm.
So I think there's,
No?
yes.
Chris audibly groaned.
I think right now there's multi-purposes for multi-departments. So like from marketing's perspective, I think that's their primary use case is audience segmentation. I would say for like ELT, the primary use case is velocity and conversion of all of your organizational funnel. How quickly,
what is the acronym you just said? ELT? Or...
Yeah. Oh, executive leadership. Sorry, like C-suite. You know, the company's white collars. They are trying to
running here.
Sorry, I don't know. They are trying to like assess all of these different motions for marketing, for sales, for CS, like how quickly and percentage probabilistically are people moving through our funnel to indicate like is it designed appropriately or not. But I think kind of from a user buying journey perspective, I'm hoping they're using it for segmentation. I'm hoping marketing is very accurately segmenting me on where I'm at so that they're not sending me the wrong thing in the wrong place. Personally.
Right. And that's where I think there's just the tiniest of nuance between we use it for buckets or groups or cohorting versus we use it to understand where they are at.
Right.
Right. And then we do things based on that. I think
that's fair. So actually my hope that it's being used for segmenting is the end result, where if you keep asking further and further and further back, my hope is that they understand me and my needs.
Right. And I think that's where it's the subtle change of we have to start from the place that's focused on them instead of, well, we need this to segment, or we need this to group people. We need this functionality in the system so that we can group. And then we create the groups. And then we look at the humans and decide which groups they should be in instead of looking at the humans and decide which groups we need.
Yeah.
Right. And like the key, the reason I think this is important and cracks this like 25-year complexity code is that as we continue introducing this, we're going to go into what kinds of things do you need to be doing internally so that you can get the signals required from these people wherever they're at in the journey, knowing that audience signals are going to look different from researcher signals, or going to look different from hand raiser signals. And like if you put a white paper in front of the hero, right, that didn't ask for it, is already bought in, like they're not going to read it. They might never open it. Does that mean like they're not interested anymore? No, it's not serving them at that part of the process at all. Well, so if you were to try and score
to that, like I think most marketing teams don't ever really think about the cost of like eroding the importance of seeing your name in their inbox and them feeling like that it is a value add. Of if it happens 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times, I have no confidence that whatever you're sending me is relevant to me, and I ignore it. I route it to junk. The minute you erode that trust, that you're telling me things based off of where I'm at, like you should be 1/2 step ahead of me, trying to move me barely along right behind you. Like if you're sending me stuff way back in the past, or if you're sending me stuff way too far ahead, I'm not reading it. I'm feeling like you don't really understand where I'm at. And then if that happens enough and I see you in my inbox, I don't care anymore. Like you kind of lose the right to talk to me at that point.
And to be honest, your inbox might do that on its own without you even.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I've gone to my junk before and seen brands that I'm like, what? Like, oh, I like that brand, but they must have ended up here because I ignored their stuff.
Yeah, your phone realized that you weren't opening their emails.
And so I think that's fair. I guess traditionally how I've explained life cycle stages, and this has mostly come up because people life cycle stages are not meant to move backwards. Just face doesn't like that. Which is, I'm just like, that's how they are built and how I've always explained why they are built that way. is that traditional life cycle stages are supposed to be like where you are in your education on the brand. So a marketing qualified lead knows this amount about your brand. An opportunity has had a demo, so they know this amount. And I've always explained it in the same terms of like getting degrees. You can get a second bachelor's degree. You can come back as a lead twice, but that doesn't, you can't undo your high school diploma or whatever. I'm not saying that's right, but I'm just saying that's how I've always like explained it. This model is a little more along the lines of where they are right now, not whether or not they've ever had a high school diploma.
Yeah. Well, so I think this is where I get into my status and stage soapbox of like stage is literally like these stage-based progression systems of like you've achieved this stage, it doesn't matter if you go through this door and immediately turn around and run 100 like in the other direction. This is the highest stage that you've achieved, which is what life cycle stage is like historically always tried to be. It's very useful for a lot of things, but only if you're also keeping track of their status. Like, are they actually still there or are they not? Like, the reporting mechanisms behind keeping up with the stage thing are so valuable from like an internal business perspective of reporting conversion and the velocity, segmentation kind of, but the segmentation really depends on the status of, for me, I've been kicking around this example. It might still be failing or not, but like in my progression as a human being, I'm in the adult stage. There are absolutely nights that I am not an adult, that I have regressed back to a child in that night. And like, I'm just not an adult, but you can't take away my adult stage. Like, that's where I'm at. I'm just not behaving like an adult right now.
Right. Like you're an adult at the dinner table, but like not when you're gaming.
Right. Exactly.
Right. And that's especially like, it's so easy to show this when it comes to the primary goals that almost every business has related to revenue is easier from your customers.
Yeah.
Right. Like HubSpot, for an example, has tons of Marketing Hub champions. Those same people are likely not Commerce Hub champions. They're Commerce Hub audience if we're lucky.
Yeah.
Right. So when you just show up with, hey, Commerce Hub, you're like, what? I don't even know how to talk that language.
Yeah.
Like, I like HubSpot, and this is how I think of HubSpot. It's marketing tools.
Yeah.
Right. But now you're coming to me assuming that I'm just as loyal a raving fan about invoices as I am about automated emails, which is definitely not the case almost ever.
See, that makes me feel even better that this is idea based, not so much like my status with a company. It's my status with a company in their suite of ideas or offerings. And it's dependent based off of all of them.
Yeah. So one of the things that's been driving this home is like the Value First communication series that I did with Clement. Like, the thing that keeps coming up over and over is timing and relevance. And like, we have no control over where the buyer is, where the customer is at in their business and professional journey, in their personal journey. Right. And if we don't create flexible frameworks that can support wherever they might be at a given point in time, we are setting everybody up for failure.
Yeah.
Because there's just a disconnect. And this example, so like, I've been working on a value path agent, and we see things like this all the time, but our CRM doesn't allow for it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't get put into the system. Like, you can have conversations where somebody's bought in, and then they say this one thing. And it's like, oh, I thought we talked about that already. How is that coming up as an objection? So in this little pocket of their world, they're still in researcher mode at that point, right? Can we create a system that allows for that? And this is where like, none of this is one-to-one. Like, perfectly. None of it is linear. You start to use all these different lenses to try and, understand the situation. But this is like when we think about loop marketing and how it applies throughout the journey, like it relates so much to communication. And now we can use AI to spot those trends and not even create structured data to put it in. But if we give AI the flexible framework,
Yeah.
we can say, yeah, 95% of the conversation is like they're ready, like they're highly empowered, everybody's on board. But this part suggests they're still a researcher, maybe even an audience. And if we don't address that right now, this deal might
It's gonna
go
come to a
away,
screeching
right?
halt. Yeah.
So at that point, what do we need to serve that audience mode, right? Which we always have a piece of content available in these cases. And it's like, oh, yeah. So for this, I'm not going to give the hero version of that content. I'm going to give the audience version of the content, which doesn't suffer from curse of knowledge or all these other things that content later in the journey, would suffer from, right?
Yeah.
Because like you say, like you start to talk to them and they start to feel like it's not relevant or it's not the right time. That erodes trust like faster. Like I thought you knew me, and now I'm getting this stuff that's like, it's like we haven't been talking for weeks. Because on this, no matter like whether we like it or not, on our side, it's going to be like, oh, I thought we covered that, and we might have covered it, but whatever the case was in that call, they weren't there. They just weren't there, like mentally for 10 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
and they went, yep, okay, and then they went to the next topic, and everything was fine. How many times does stuff like that pop up and just like end
Yeah.
like deals or derail like implementations, right?
So for this, just to try, because my intent in being here is try and poke holes in a lot of this stuff, or at least figure out where we're at, but then also figure out like how can I start building some of this into something, because I'm doing some lead scoring finite projects, but I'm also doing lead scoring in a long-term project for a couple clients. So like I don't think right now that like I would go rename life cycle stages to these. I think there's a world that I'm making like a dual property to try and understand where someone is. But I'm not even like building workflows or automations in a way like I would with life cycle stage, with like automate moving that forward and like date stamping and like get to I don't care about building the reporting machine for this necessarily. What I would think I'm doing is like training Breeze on this idea, maybe even creating a custom Breeze assistant around this idea, so that it can at any kind of given point tell me, like summarize a record in this framework, not only holistically, like, hey, this person is a hero relative to your entire company, but it's like, hey, right now they're in like the hero mindset for probably 9 out of the 10 things that you're doing, but this next conversation that you're having, there still is a really big sticking point on this like component, or that they've not addressed. There's been no, like we typically see an objection here and there hasn't been an objection, so they might not even be aware of this. Be sure that you're just forthcoming on the next call, like poke at this and see what happens. Like that it's like this mechanism for AI to like try and get all parts of a person to one of these stages as you're proceeding. Is that like, am I right? Am I wrong? Am I just spinning?
All parts of a person. I love that part. Because that's it. Like if we do this alongside, because I think this approach is very much dependent on like behavior analysis, trend analysis, pattern matching help from AI. And if we do that alongside, like everything you described, like lead, MQL, SQL, stage and gate, like doesn't make any sense at all. Like you could see some of that stuff and it's gonna be like, well, they're a sales accepted lead, so I guess we're good to go, right?
Right.
Like,
Well, especially, I mean, to me, that whole thing is even breaking down because of how much outbound motions are happening now. Or like
right,
the minute sales starts working someone, even if it's a total net new person, in theory, they should be a sales accepted lead. Like they should just start there. And then you lose all like, the first whole half. Like this life cycle stage model is almost only really good still for like inbound velocity and conversion reporting, which that's still good. Like I don't want to toss the baby out with the bathwater and say like we should quit caring about that. Like in my mind, I'll probably never actually kill it because I still want to have an idea of that metric and like how that's kind of performing just so I can maneuver some things around. But like,
all right. My official goal by the end of this series is that you're throwing that shit out.
really?
water.
Okay.
Whatever.
You have to give me a very
Right?
compelling reason to not care about that metric.
How about the
I'm
fact
open.
that this
I'm
has
open
never
to it.
worked ever
Yeah.
in SaaS? Like we're 25 years in and people suck at lead scoring. People are terrible at CRM implementations and adoption rates are terrible,
Yeah.
right? Like it starts with the words that we use. And imagine if you just couldn't use the words sales accepted lead and whatever that's tied to.
Yeah.
Right. Again, this is why CRMs don't get adopted.
True.
It's like sales accepted lead. What? I'm just talking to this human,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to
Every
build
time
trust.
I have this conversation, I'm with you on it's frustrating and complex. My solution has always been to lean into the conversations and be like, okay, well, let's talk about exclusively exactly what that means. Like from a software configuration perspective, like this has to equal yes. Like we have to have 1, 0, 1, like all of that all the way down. But I hear you. I'm hesitant that this can fully replace lifecycle stage, like every which of way. I think this can replace how 70% of lifecycle stage so far. Like,
Yeah,
and I'm willing
this
to
only
like
works
give it that.
if it actual like the reality does happen where we don't have to define these terms as much or at all. Like sales accepted lead has to be defined,
right?
Because it means something different for every organization and sometimes different people inside of that organization. Whereas hand raiser, we should not have to explain that. And if we are, it's probably a process problem, or like we want to assume people are raising their hand and they're not actively raising their hand. And if we like, that's the only way this works. Like if we can use words that people can see for face value and understand like what it is and not have to go look it up on the enablement docs or whatever. And that's how this is going to work. But we've got work to do to create that foundation. But that's where half of the work is done when you don't try to read into what these words mean, right? And that's why the statement of I am learning, I am researching is also important because it's very straightforward, right? And we'll get into like each stages, right? Like, because you got to do things a little bit differently now if you're not going to have lead, stage, and gate like set up, right?
Yeah.
Which is always based on internal stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
And again, I know we will talk a lot about lead scoring too, like the actual technical lead scoring thing, but it's also worth calling out that like, I mean, that is your visibility into components that you've been scoring is rapidly diminishing. So like the idea of you being able to build something yourself is AI can just do it better for the most part. But then also people are just not doing stuff on your website. They're not doing trackable things that you can score based off of, increasingly more so. So I want to talk about the lead scoring thing, but I do think this will evolve over time into a lot
value
more
first scoring,
dynamic stage scoring. Yeah.
Value first scoring is really about like scoring the health of the relationship.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole journey, because AI is there to see all and know all related to unstructured data that's happening on social, happening in at events, like all these things, right? AI can do that for you if you tell it like what to do
Right.
and how you want to do it, right? We've got like the things it's doing on the health scoring side, like sentiment analysis in HubSpot
Yeah.
for customers popping up all over the place. It's beautiful,
Yeah.
right? Why can't we extend that out the whole way,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I think it's pretty clear. We'll be back next week.
We can, by the way, we can extend it out the whole way, folks. So it starts with stop the word lead, like,
Yeah.
please. And that makes it so much easier.
Join us next week where Riley and Chris will continue brawling over.
Well, I'm very interested in talking about like where we're at now. Like to me, that how lead scoring interfaces with the old lifecycle stage model and how it might interface with this in your mind. Like assuming we just replace the model and we keep the archaic lead scoring, or if that's not even possible, that it's like we have to totally get rid of the idea of both before we can like embrace this idea. So I'm hoping we can start there next week.
Chris says yes.
It helps. I mean, value first is very much about transformation, not optimization.
Yeah, no, it's
Right.
definitely like just jump out and screw a parachute.
I'm suggesting with this whole thing is that you cannot optimize lead scoring because it's broken for all the reasons that Riley has described and Casey has described many a times. We're continuing to fit it in to the old categories because that's the software that we have available to us and the understanding that we have available to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But
I can understand that observation.
Yep.
And we can discuss like to a certain extent, it's like, okay, we're getting as much out of we can out of a standard combustion engine, but you can't apply components of that combustion engine to this other totally new non-standard combustion engine that we're building. Like, so if lead scoring is a part of it, it doesn't really, if you're optimizing that, it doesn't do anything into this other new electrical or whatever engine that we're building. So
yep.
I'm happy. I want to waller in that with you a little bit, I guess.
All right, let's do it.
All right. See you next week.
See you next week.
Thanks, Casey.